The income required to rent a house or a unit across capital cities has risen to nearly $113,000, up by more than 50% in the last 6 years. It's slightly less in the regions at around $100,000. Let's get into a bit more detail from that report with author Domain's Nicola Powell. Good to see you. No real surprise that your report points out Sydney remains the most unaffordable city to rent.
It is, and what that means is you need a higher income to be able to rent in Sydney to avoid rental stress. So the income for renting a house needs to be at $135,000 in Sydney, and for a unit it's actually not much less than that, it's only $5,000 lower. What we've got is the most affordable capital city is actually Melbourne and as well Hobart. So roughly about $100,000 is needed to avoid rental stress to rent a house. And all of the other capital cities kind of ladder in between that $100,000 and $135,000. So it's still a significant amount of income. And I think what this demonstrates is, particularly for lower income households, how challenged it has become.
You've touched on the fact that there aren't great differences in prices between units and homes. How can renters try to get a better deal in this environment?
I think that's the interesting aspect that this report looks at, is there's not much difference between renting a house and renting a unit. I think what we found is that affordability does increase though the further you get. That sweet point is about 30 kilometres from the CBD. But the interesting aspect, once you get 40 kilometres or more, you tend to find that that affordability starts to reverse because you're then edging into lifestyle regions.
Nicola, the Reserve Bank has prepared Australians for a possible rate hike next year. Do tenants have to be prepared for landlords to try to pass on increased costs?
I think what the concern might come from is if we do see rate hikes, what that might do is actually deter further investment activity. Investors are really chase capital growth, and what we might start to see if we do see the cash rate being hiked in 2026, it will slow down the pace of price growth.
And so what we're talking about in terms of affordability, does it mean that many renters in Australia, perhaps most renters, are experiencing financial stress? That is, spending more than 30% of their pre-tax income on housing.
We have to really reflect what we've seen over the past 5 years, where we've seen rents increase by roughly 50%, where wages have only increased by about 18%. So technically, if you wanted to live in the same suburb you did 5 years ago, it would be consuming much more of your household income. I think what we have certainly seen is the increase in asking rents has really pushed more people into rental stress. But interestingly, when you look at household incomes and the rent being paid across our major capital cities, actually all of them on a capital city level sit below that 30% for rental stress. But I think the important point here is lower income households will really be feeling the pinch.
Okay, and so looking forward to 2026, you have been forecasting what renters can expect. What have you found?
So we are forecasting further rent hikes for 2026. We're forecasting roughly about a 3 to 4% increase in asking rents over the entire calendar year. That's a modest increase, slightly above what we expect inflation to be sitting at. So I think what we're seeing is the rapid rises of rents are in the past, but I think the pressure is still there, and that is why we are expecting rents to nudge a little bit higher.
Nicola Powell, thank you.
Thank you.